Okay, I've got a 70s Deluxe Reverb here. I've not dated it precisely yet. I'll do that when I pull it out and look at the transformers. The owner loves this amp, has been using it for years, and reported that last time he used it on a gig, there was what he described as a tea kettle whistling sound, and it went away when he powered the amp off and then back on again. And then it happened again at his house a couple days later, I believe. But it's really intermittent. It's not done that for me yet. I had this running a little bit yesterday. I have my suspicions about what that could be, but I wanted to go through how the amp is otherwise before I take it all apart. I want to know what to look for. So the first thing that I hear is if the vibrato is on, there's a background pa-da-da, 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 pa-da-da that should not be there with the intensity at 0. So we will get back to that. That could just be a lead dress. It could be DC on the board. Let's check out the normal channel. That all sounds good and what I expect it to be. No noise on the pots. So that's good. That seems like a healthy channel. I've already tapped in all the tubes. None of the preamp tubes are microphonic. I don't hear any dirt on the pots or static that could indicate DC on the board, at least on the normal channel. So let's switch to the vibrato channel. Okay, it's got a higher noise floor than the normal channel to a degree that's expected with the reverb circuit. This might be a little bit higher than I'd like. Let's see how it sounds. Again, neck pickup on a Strat. Wow, that's bright. It's really bright. Now, I know this amp probably has the bright cap on the volume pot still, but I suspect that not only that, but they might have used a different taper pot on the treble pot. Some of the 70s Fenders, instead of using the 30% taper that they always used here, which is also called a J taper, used a linear taper pot. And if that's the case, it should probably sound more balanced here, just below 4. Yeah, it's really exaggeratedly bright, even with the treble down. So I suspect either the factory made a mistake, which they did a lot in the 70s, or someone changed that pot for the wrong value. I'll find out. The bass seems a little bit weak, but that may be the speaker. I suspect it's got the original speaker from the 70s. I'll find out. The reverb seems good. No big hum. Make sure it switches on and off right. Alright, the reverb switch is not working. I know the tremolo switch is working. But there's just that put when that's on. So before I worry too much about the reverb not switching inside the amp, let's look inside the foot switch itself. That's where a lot of problems often are. I can get this off on camera. Well, everything there looks okay. Not great, but okay. Could be a bad switch though. I'll measure that. Or it could be a problem in the wire, or it could be a problem inside how the amp is wired, but that's a moderately trivial thing to worry about. Let me test that bass theory real quick. See if it's the speaker, or it could be filter caps keeping the bass from developing. Let's go back to the normal channel, because, you know, audio memory from 2 minutes ago is nothing to rely on. Yeah, it's still a little bit bass shy. Now granted, deluxe reverbs don't have the best full low end, given that it's a 1x12 in a cabinet with relatively small and shallow dimensions, but I think it can do a little bit better than that. So I'll be testing this through other speaker cabs. I want to know what's the amp and what's the speaker, but these are all the considerations. So I will show this again on the bench, and we'll go through all the fun goodies inside. Okay, going into this Deluxe Reverb, it's got a replaced dress washer here. I've got the real deals. I'll replace that replacement. It's very clean looking. It's got some JJs for the rectifier and power tubes. I'll check what all the preamp tubes are. All right, here we have a clue as to why the reverb foot switch isn't working. We've got some heat shrink where it doesn't belong. It may be covering a repair. I'll look into that. Not too concerned about it. Let's see if I can get this to focus. Yeah, you see those 2 screws there, and there's 2 more on that side. That's a good thing, because this amp's going to be a 69 through a 72, because starting in 72 they went to a glued-in dado baffle, which makes it impossible to tighten things up. With these screws I can make sure that this baffle is nice and tight. It's got what looks to be the original speaker. Now this speaker does not have especially fantastic low end in any case, but I think this one is particularly a little bit weak, so maybe worth looking into getting that reconed, or putting this carefully in a box for a collector and getting a more efficient, louder, more full range speaker in this. I know that's anathema to some, but honestly Fender kind of crippled the Deluxe Reverb by using the Oxford, because they didn't want to compete with people who had, say, a Pro Reverb. So you take out this Oxford, put in a C12N, you get a better sounding amp. These are all probably just a little loose from vibration over the years. That one's good. These are the things that I'll do once the chassis is out. But it's got the tube tag label. Everything looks really clean. It's a very nice example cosmetically. So let me stop here and open it up, and we will resume the inspection. All right, resuming the inspection. This power transformer has seen things, man. It's got this coating that I don't often see, and that coating looks like it's gotten very, very hot over the years. And that's not normal. But the power, choke, and reverb transformers date to 1969, which puts this amp at 6970, right in line with the cab. It's got a classic tone replacement output transformer, which is fine. Make sure it's tight. Sorry, it's much easier to do when I'm not rolling a video at the same time. Pretty tight on that. Good on that. I'll check all that, and I'll make sure this bias nut is very tight. Now, in keeping with what I said in the previous part of this about Fender cheaping out on the Deluxe Reverb, they didn't use the tube retainer sockets like they do on the larger amps, and the rectifier and output tubes all have a lot of wiggle, which is not a good thing in a hang-down combo. So the owner's already given me permission to do whatever I think this amp needs. I'm going to put in some bear trap tube retainers to help that out, and I'll also go in there and tighten up the sockets themselves. We'll get to that later. So let's see what's waiting for us underneath the doghouse. Okay, good. Someone's been in here before, and they've been following my videos. I'm kidding. No, I'm not the only one who does it right. These look like they were done right. I will triple check all those solder joints. Let me get this to focus better. I will triple check those solder joints, and I will double check these resistor values. It's got that 69 wire, like I would expect. So odds are everything here is fine, though these 1 watt carbon comps can be faulty at times. So let's stop here and flip it over and take a look at what else has been done to this amp. Okay, one of the first things I check on these amps, and I checked on it before I even powered it on the first time, was that it has the correct 2 amp fuse. I've seen too many that don't have that. So let me put this to the side for now, and let's just take a look. All right, someone wants us to know that it's from '69. This must be an old... I've never seen it written from the factory like this. I imagine that someone had a stamp on the chassis that, for whatever reason, was becoming illegible or erased, so they rewrote that there. All right, the bias has been redone. That's a really good quality cap there that they used. If I can get that to focus. That's the original resistor and original diode. And normally, in the past, I would have said that's fine. I've had problems with these diodes failing in the past couple of years, so I don't trust it as much. All right, it's got some replacement heater balances there. And it's going to a really fugly looking ground connection there on the chassis. Like most 69s, they've got the transformer mounted hardware for grounds, which are also soldered to chassis. Those tend to break. I don't trust those. I'll be redoing those with solder connections to ground, directly to chassis. It's got replaced screen grid resistors, which look fine. I'll check them. I'll double check the value of the grid stoppers, which could be a possible explanation for that squeal. Pause this and turn it around. It's had the power cable replaced with a 3 conductor. It's not been properly done. The ground needs to be longer than the others. Let's see how they did with the fusing. So this is always fun to do on camera. That goes to there, that goes to there, that goes to there. Okay, they did that properly. So they've got the hot going to the fuse and the proper side of the fuse, and then from there to the switch, and there to the primary on the power transformer, and the neutral is just tagged here at the old lug of the polarity switch, which no longer has the cap to ground. So that's fine. That's how I do it. I won't have to redo all that. I will have to pull this cable in more, just to get a little more, let me do it while I point at it, get a little more slack. Let me start this again. Okay, they've got a 3-conductor power cable installed. Let's see if they did it right. They made one mistake. The ground wire is shorter than the hot and neutral, and the ground needs to be longer. I can just pull the cable in to buy another maybe 2-3 inches, and then shorten these wires, and that'll give me that longer ground connection. Let's see if they wired this properly. So we got hot here. 1, 2, yes. Yes, okay, so they got the hot going to directly to the fuse, which is, well, they're using this lug as a holder, that's fine, but they have hot to fuse tip, this side of the fuse going to the switch and then to the primary connection, and the neutral is going to the other primary connection. So that's good. That's all to modern safety code. A lot of people don't get that right. Whoever did this work did, so that makes me happy. just like how their filter cap job seems to be really good. So aside from getting the ground a little too short, this is all the code. So I'll lengthen this, and I'm going to redo that ground to the chassis itself. Now this wire here going to the B+ connection on the rectifier tube seems to be under a lot of tension. I don't like that. I think I may replace that wire just to have a little less tension on that connection. And this ground here I'll also redo the chassis. So let me flip this back around again, and we'll keep looking. Okay, going across. All right, a lot of the old caps have been replaced, and they are using this. Which ones are those? Sorry, can't see. All right, let's go through the rest of the circuit. Got some replaced capacitors and some replaced resistors. These are 1-watt metal films that Vishay makes, and these are look to be Zycons. They may be DMEs. I think they're Zycons, and they have the 1-watt metal films there on the grid leaks. The phase inverter has had some work done. I got to replace carbon film here. That doesn't look so great. I'll revisit that. I could tell by the operation of the tremolo speed that this cap is the proper 4.7 microfarad. Otherwise, it would there'd be a lag when I turn it. We've got a cap here. What value did they use? Can't see it on camera. Okay, it's the proper 1 nanofarad. The ceramic disc is more appropriate to the sound, but that won't make or break the total amp. I've got the original caps in the tremolo LFO. These commonly fail, but they're still working in this amp because the tremolo oscillator is working. I've got all new cathode bypass caps and a couple other replaced coupling caps. People say bad things about these reddish brown caps. They're fine. They usually accompany other problems in the amp as CBS's lead dress went downhill. And you can see here I have to clean this lead dress up a lot. But the caps are not a problem themselves. Got the big 1-watt carbon comp plate resistors from the period. I'll measure all those, make sure everything's looking good. This is right before they started waxing the boards. The board waxing started going crazy in 73. So 69 is usually pretty good. There's probably a little bit of DC on the board. I'll get that sorted out. So it's got a replaced cap here. I'll make sure that's not one of the ones that just says SM. If it is, I'll change it out for a different cap. All the pots seem to be original to the amp. There's that bright cap that we were hearing. Now, in just a moment, I'm going to pull this pot out, the treble pot, and we're going to see what value that is. I'll measure it in place first, but I suspect that that is a linear taper. If that is not a linear taper cap, then something is dreadfully wrong with the base part of this circuit. And this is the base cap, which is a new one, so I suspect it will be the pot, not in the circuit itself. And it's got the typical 69 lead dress with the beginning of the spaghetti. Certainly not as bad as it was by 71 when they used the thick wires and lots of it. But this can all be neatened up, and it's worth taking the time to do it. So, off camera, when I can really look at things, I'm going to examine every solder joint. Because that squeal he described, that tea kettle, could just be a solder joint that isn't quite as happy as it ought to be. So, stay tuned. I'm going to check out that treble pot. Well, we have a minor mystery here on the treble response that you heard. That both channels have 250K audio taper pots for both treble and bass. And according to my measurements, they're at 50% rotation, they're about 20% of the total value. So the bass isn't what you would find in the 60s amps, which would be more closer to a 10%. And the treble certainly isn't, which should be more of a 30%. But if anything, this should be darker with this pot than it is. And this channel sounds about right. It's possible that this bright cap has changed its value dramatically, with a lot more capacitance than originally. And this treble cap on the vibrato channel is indeed one of the 250 picofarad SM caps, which develop problems a lot. So I will have to do a couple of experiments to see why this channel is just so damn bright. It's possible that it's also something in here. I've got to check these values and all that fun stuff. But I think I've done just about everything I can do from a visual inspection on camera for right now. So I will report back when I find what it is.